Welcome and thank you for joining us today. Today we're talking about the diplomatic no, and I'm joined by Mark Basil. And Mark, as a project manager, I've done a great job in defining my charter, my scope, my requirements. I put a change process in place. I've got my project management plan in place. I'm feeling really good about my project. And here comes the customer saying they want a change, and I'm not too excited about it. Do I just go ahead and say yes to all these changes, or just say no, I'm not doing it? What are my options here?
Right. Well, that's a good question. So one of the things you encountered was the limits of the planning process. You can't anticipate everything, so changes will happen. You can minimize them, but they're going to happen.
This is a reality check for all of us.
It is. Right? It's a reality check. Second is, no, you don't always want to say yes.
Okay.
Right.
I'm a people pleaser, right? I want to do that, right?
It is,
okay.
and I understand that. You're in a meeting with a bunch of maybe unhappy customers, but if you say yes to everything, you could blow out your schedule, you could affect your quality, which is ultimately going to lead to an unhappy customer.
And vice versa, if I just say, forget it, no?
Right, you can't do that either.
Okay. All right, so that brings us to the process of the diplomatic no.
Right.
And how do we deal with this?
So first step is you need to truly understand what the problem is, and that in itself is a process, right?
Okay.
And it's, one of the techniques that works very well is what they call active listening. But, like you're sitting here with your notepad, you want to make certain that you're really understanding, why the customer thinks that this is a problem. And in the process of doing that, as you're making your notes, you want to periodically summarize back, here's what I think you're telling me.
I think that's powerful because so many of us have run into this where you say, or you hear from the customer and they said, that's not really what I meant.
Right.
And you read that back and you say, this is the way I understand it. This is what the change you're asking for. Oh, no, I really don't mean that. Or that's what I want.
Right.
Okay.
So, and in the process of understanding the problem, one thing to keep in mind is your point contact. Maybe you're working with another company. Your point contact may not be the best person to provide you answers, so you may need to bring in somebody else from their side to help drill down and get your questions answered. And that just shows
why they want this change.
Right,
okay.
and maybe the details that you need. And they probably will appreciate that because it shows that you're really trying to address the problem.
Okay, so I've got my hands under control, and I've maybe taken a break from the customer now. I said, I'm going to go away and study this or get more detail.
Right, or go to your team. So this is where your change control process comes into place.
Okay, and they hopefully have known about that with our expert tools and having change control before we start the project, always. Okay.
Right. So they understand what that is. And so then you follow that process, which means meeting with your team and going over what the request is. And what you're trying to do is determine, for one thing, is this a nicety versus a necessity?
Okay, or a deal breaker on the project, right?
Right.
And at least in the customer minds, or our mind might be.
Right, exactly. Because, in one way to think about it is, if the project's going to fail without this, then it's definitely a necessity, right? So now you've sat down with your team, and they've looked it over, and they've looked at the level of difficulty and the importance level. And one thing to be looking at is this request something maybe other customers would value, which may move it up in the priorities.
Yeah, might help.
Right.
Okay.
So now you looked at it, and you have to decide if you're going to move ahead with this or not. And let's say that this looks like it's way complicated, and it's going to really affect the scope and the schedule of the project. So this is where the diplomatic no
really kicks in. Okay.
Right. So at this point, what you want to be able to do is come to the customer with alternatives, right? So you want to think about and work with your team. Are there other options that we can explore? So for example, maybe you're working with the customer and designing a car, and it comes back that they need to carry heavy loads and they really want a truck, right? So starting your project from a car to a truck is a major change.
So what you're saying is, instead of offering these alternatives, knee-jerk reaction right at the beginning, you're showing their customer that you've thought this through, taking your time, gone through a process, because a lot of people may just say, no, you can't do that, but try this.
Right.
This is the diplomatic no is a more methodical solution or alternative for the
Right,
customer.
right.
Okay.
Because you want to make certain that your alternative is practical. You don't want to guess.
Okay.
So you really want to verify with your team that this is going to work. So using the car example, your teammates suggest, well, instead of transforming it into a truck, why don't we put a trailer hitch on it and they can haul their load, and that might be a viable option. So now you go back to your customer and you're presenting to them, three choices: the original plan, the alternative, the trailer hitch, or the basically the truck, or their full option. But you need to have spec'd out what the schedule and cost impact on the project is, and then you're basically letting them make the choice.
Okay, so they really take ownership of this solution there.
Right.
Again, and they may come to the conclusion, no, I don't want to make that change, but at least they feel good about it. You've got a happy customer.
Right.
The diplomatic no has worked effectively, and you get a great solution in the customer's mind too.
Right. They've been listened to. They felt like they had choices. Everybody was informed.
Okay, great. And much easier than just saying yes or saying no, right?
Right.
I mean, in the long run, because again, one customer's happy, they might tell 8 or tell 15, your project's going to expand, your business grows, or your organization effectiveness is just great. So,
Right.
Mark, powerful tool that you have used on all types of projects?
You bet.
Okay, all right. Well, we encourage you to look at Mark's step-by-step process for handling this, and we have an additional video because of the importance of this subject on the subject of the diplomatic no.